Are you an athlete or individual who experiences patella tendon pain on the regular? If you're sick of it coming back every single season, then this video is for you. Are you the type of athlete who's used to the seasonal cycle of patella tendon pain where you're in season, it hurts, it's bothering you, you struggle to get through games or competition, and then the end of the season comes around and you're like, great, I'm going to take some time off, let this thing heal, and then we'll get back to the next season, only for it to come right back again. You must be absolutely sick of this cycle. I've seen it in plenty of individuals before, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how this pattern is predictable and how the patella tendon works. We're going to talk about the seasonal pattern behind why your patella tendon pain keeps coming back, and ultimately what to do about it so you don't have to worry about it bothering you anymore. Patella tendon pain, super common in athletes. It's going to be a lot of athletes who are involved in running and jumping sports, and it's usually not because you've broken or damaged your patella tendon, and it's usually not just because you're injury prone. So what does your patella tendon actually deal with? It's going to pretty much cop any kind of knee loading, okay? So if you're bending your knees, if you're sprinting, if you're jumping, anything like that, heavy changes of direction, if you're going to be doing any of those motions, your patella tendon is going to be doing a lot of work for you. And the patella tendon is awesome at handling loads. We need to respect that the patella tendon does a lot of work. And it's like I said, if you're in any of those sports that require those physical attributes, allowing it to adapt over time and giving it the opportunity to do those things for you is really good. However, when we just overstep the mark a little bit, sometimes that tendon starts to get a bit grumpy. And the reason is because the patella tendon is super sensitive to load spikes. And if you're someone who has been training at this level and essentially the competition demands jump up to here, if you're doing that for a few weeks on end, then suddenly that patella might just start to let you know that it's getting a little bit unhappy with that. And the reason it doesn't like these spikes in training load is because it is slow adapting. The reason you're all here though is, why is my patella tendon pain coming back on this cyclical nature every single season? I play a season of sport, I take time off in the off season, and then I come back to that season of sport next, and I'm expecting it to be gone, but it's just back again. So why is that? This is the seasonal nature of the patella tendon. So usually with a sport season, you're going to have an off season. And in that off season, your training load goes down. So we see drops in intensity and we see drops in volume. And when we drop volume in intensity, we also see the loading on that patella tendon go down as well. And then when the loading on the tendon goes down, the tendon settles a little bit. It doesn't have that threat there anymore. And so then the pain just starts to go away and you're feeling good all of a sudden. But the other thing we're not addressing here is that when you're offloading the tendon, it's also causing its tolerance to go down as well. And then when we return to that pre-season phase, suddenly we see this spike in training volume, most often in like running or jumping volume, if that's what your sport demands. And that load has increased suddenly a lot quicker than what the tolerance can adapt to it and catch up. And this might not bother you straight away. It might take a few weeks or even a couple of months of pre-season training, depending on where your loading to tolerance is at, and before you actually start to see symptoms flare up. And then we get from this pre-season phase to this in-season phase, and suddenly we've got this gradual rise in pain coming right back again. And even with the pain, you might still notice that performance is okay. Like you can still sprint, you can still change direction, you can still jump, you can still land and decelerate, you can do all these physical qualities, but it's just giving you a little bit of pain and letting you know that, hey, I'm still here. But then as the training continues and competition continues, then that's when we start to see performance go down. So you're gonna notice the biggest thing probably being stiffness in that patella tendon. You're also gonna notice that pain increases regularly further through training, you might notice that the tendon doesn't loosen up as much when you start the training or a match. And even after training or a game, or even the next day after that as well, you're going to notice that you're super stiff and having a hard time even just walking. And then throughout the day as well, you just get this ongoing irritation where it's constantly there and you're not able to get over it fully. And the reason this cycle occurs is because each season you go through, your loading is just resetting. So we get in season, we get off season. We get in season, we get off season. However, we don't actually see this progression in loading, tolerance, and capacity of the patella tendon. And then this core problem becomes more of, not that you're doing too much overall, it's more so that you're doing too much relative to your current levels of capacity. So I want you to try and just think a little bit laterally here and reframe what's going on. I don't want you to think that your patella tendon is broken or damaged or it's failing you. I simply just want you to reframe it to the fact that it's being asked to do more than what it's currently capable of. So what are the common mistakes that keep this cyclical action happening with that patella tendon pain? So in that off season where I spoke before, we have these drops in training load, and then therefore that tolerance goes down of the patella tendon. It's great because it feels better, but we're not actually giving it the opportunity to build tolerance and capacity. And the cool thing about being in an off season is you can do that in a controlled manner. Trying to do it in an in season is a bad idea because when you're competing in a sport, you don't have control over what goes on in competition. Most of the time, you're reacting to what's going on out on the sporting field. You have to be able to adjust to what the competition is asking of you. However, in that off-season phase, you can control everything that's going on. So that is the best time to start trying to build capacity into an unhappy tendon. And if we're not gradually building our tolerance across the seasons, we're going from here, maybe getting a little bit more tolerance as the season goes on, but the loading is up here. And then as the loading drops down here, that tolerance starts to come back down to meet where we're at in terms of training volume. And you're constantly just starting from the same baseline, which is why when you're trying to get that tolerance back up in the in-season, but your loading is up here, it starts to hurt again. And that's where these spikes in pre-season training load give you way too much work way too early on, and you haven't just slowly ramped your way up as you probably should have. And if you are following a rehab program in the off season, it might also be that it's not quite meeting the demands or physical qualities that you require for your sport, which is why that recurring cycle continues. Yes, doing some heavy loading in the gym is a great way to help improve tendon capacity, but we also need to expose it to things like jumps, change of direction, and the specific loading that you're going to undergo during a sport season. And that could include just some controlled skill work in the off season so that you're not just going in completely unprepared in that pre-season phase. And that's why just doing strength training on its own isn't enough to prepare you to play your sport. Yes, it's a great way to build general physical capacity because strength is a really important quality to be able to perform optimally, but you need to do other things around that. Just lifting heavy weights on their own, trying to build some strength and some muscle mass isn't going to get it done for you. The really important part I want to address here and just drive home for you to understand is the problem with just resting at the end of a season. Rest is good because it will help you reduce your symptoms, but rest is not good because it reduces exposure to training load, and reduced exposure to training load therefore reduces tolerance in the tissue that is unhappy. So when you are resting, you're never actually improving tolerance. And that's the biggest thing with patella tendon pain that you need to understand. And like I said, you need to be able to really push that off-season phase as hard as you can without making that patella tendon way worse, so that you can build up a little bit of tolerance and capacity and allow yourself to be prepared for the next pre-season period. And the real key shift in mentality here is to not think, how do I get rid of this pain? And start thinking, how can I start building some capacity into my patella tendon so it can handle the demands that I'm placing on it? So what are we going to do? What's a nice little framework you can follow to help improve your patella tendon pain and stop this cyclical year-round problem that you're having from in-season to off-season to pre-season? Number one is maintain that tendon loading in the off-season. This is probably the most important step out of them all. Number two is gradually increase loading before you return to the pre-season phase. You want to start to progress your volume. You want to start to progress your intensity, and you want to start to progress the specific demands that are required of you in your sport. You don't want to go from zero loading to full sport loading straight away. Because for any part of your body, that is a recipe for disaster, not just your patella tendon. And when you're doing these things, you need to monitor how much pain am I enduring the activity, how much pain am I getting after the activity, and how much pain am I waking up with the next day. With this data, you want to monitor the weekly trends, and that way you can use that data to adjust your training load appropriately. Remember, you're not trying to eliminate every single piece of pain. You're just trying to keep it manageable. So in summary, if you're someone with this cyclical issue of patella tendon pain, it's probably due to the nature of your underloading in the off-season and the overloading in the in-season period. However, when you can adjust your negative thought process of how do I just get rid of this pain to how can I build some tendon capacity, you're going to take some big positive steps forward in actually being able to get over this. However, I know what you're thinking. If you're thinking, James, I know now that I need to get some tendon capacity, but every time I try and train my tendon, it hurts. So how much pain am I actually supposed to work through? Well, this video right here is going to help you with that. So make sure you click there and you'll learn how much pain you should be pushing through and how much pain you shouldn't be ignoring.